Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Leighanne and I talk about books. We're in a different location today. I just didn't have the mental fortitude to pull out my ring light and all that stuff and get set up in front of the bookshelf, so here we are. I had started out doing this wrap up kind of like more vlog style. I have a clip that I had already filmed where I went through like half of the books that I had read like in my absence. Then I had planned on like filming like a little bit at a time, and I just hadn't gotten around to it, you know, just because things have been a little crazy. You guys know what's going on like as far as work and all those things, so here we are. So total there is 15 books in this wrap up, and that's over the space of 3 or 4 months, which for me is terrible, but you know what, we're just gonna go with it because at the end of the day it doesn't matter, right? I'm gonna take this opportunity to insert the clip that I have already filmed, so you guys will see that right now, and I'll catch up with you in a minute. Hey y'all, okay, so this is, you know, gonna be the whole vlog stuff. I'm gonna do this in a couple of different parts, mostly because this is covering like April, May, June, and July. So there's a lot of books. Well, not a lot of books. Well, yeah, I guess there is. This one, I'm specifically only going to talk about May and June because that just feels like the right thing to do. I do have physical copies of most of these books, but I am feeling far too lazy to pull them off the shelves right now, so you're just gonna have to get graphics on the screen. Okay, so May, we know that I didn't really read a lot in May, and I think the only thing that I read in May, well no, I read a couple of different things, but I think I talked about them already in my, I don't remember. Y'all, I'm so lost. Okay, I'm just gonna talk about some books. Let's just call all of this June. Let's just call all of it June. Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers, which is the 3rd book in the Wayfarer series, which you don't have to read them in chronological order. Like, they're kind of companion pieces more than an actual series, but it helps if you understand like what happened in the other 2 books to, you know, like understand some references and stuff. This one I ended up giving like 3.5 stars. I think I rounded it up to 4 because it was more like 3.75 or something like that. And I think that I liked it a little bit better than I liked Closed and Common Orbit. It's still nothing compared to Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, but there were a lot of like the same recurring themes, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm like sitting here trying to remember it and I don't remember much about it, and that says something right there. That I don't remember a ton of it. I remember pieces of it, like I remember pieces of plot, but I generally don't talk about plot in wrap-ups, so it's like, why would I start now? But like, moral of the story is I liked it okay. Just know that if you loved Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, you're not gonna love this as much. So that's pretty much all I'm gonna say about that one. So the book that got me out of my reading slump, and I started this while I was on vacation, I actually started and finished it while I was on vacation, is Beneath by Kirsty Meester, which is the story of a journalist who goes to a small town in North Carolina to cover like a religious cult, and it's like a snake handling cult. It deals a lot with religion. I will say that it is extremely triggering for anybody who has dealt with sexual assault, especially people if you have dealt with sexual assault in regards to church. So that is the thing that you need to be aware exists. There are a lot of themes in regards to that. There are a lot, it discusses it directly, so if that is something that you do find triggering, please know that going into this. But as far as horror goes, it definitely had a lot of horror elements. I liked it very much. I gave it 3.5 stars. There were parts where the pacing dragged a little bit, and we got to a certain point in the book and it was like halfway through and I'm like, are we really gonna drag the ending out for the rest of this? Because like, I feel like at this point we've reached the climax. So structurally and like pacing, it could have used a little bit more editing, but for the most part I really enjoyed it, so like I would recommend it. The next book that I read, because I wanted something like vaguely like thriller-like, but not necessarily horror, so I ended up picking up The Anomaly by Michael Rutker, which I didn't really know anything about it going into it, and I gave it 3 stars. So it follows this group of people who have like this web series about anomalies. So like, think Ghost Hunters, but not, but it's kind of like that same vibe. And they get the opportunity to like go to the Grand Canyon, and they're like looking for something that like people say exists and it doesn't, and they find it, and then like shit goes down. So it was like vaguely sciencey, but not really. It was definitely predictable in parts, but like it was entertaining. I would probably not reread it, but I would read something else by the author. And this is supposed to be like a series. I don't know if it's supposed to follow the same people or if it's more gonna be a companion, whatever. But regardless, like I think that I would maybe read the other one. I'm probably gonna end up unhauling the book just specifically because I don't see myself rereading it, but like if the next book doesn't take too long to come out, I would probably read it. So if that makes any sense. Then just the way that that book was and the subject matter, I was like, I want to read Jurassic Park because I've never read it. And I really enjoy the movie. And so I read the book, and this is one of those cases where the film is superior to the book, in my opinion. So there were a lot of science elements, which weren't, like, that's not a bad thing. It was done in a way where like I could understand it, so like I didn't have any problems with that. But I'm pretty sure that Michael Rutger hates girl children. But as far as like a film adaptation include in subsequent films, he pretty spot on. Or there are a couple of scenes in the book that don't make it into the original Jurassic Park film, but they take those into like Jurassic Park 2 and 3. So, you know, that was interesting. But yeah, I ended up only giving it 3 stars. I still want to read the rest of the series just to say that I've read the rest of the series because Jurassic Park. But for real, like the book's better than, not the book, the film is better than the book. And the next book that I read was The Child Finder by Renee Dunfield. And holy shit, this is the best book that I read in several months. This book was so fucking good. So I actually listened to this via audio. I had it in Audible, and I had remembered seeing so many people talking about how amazing it was. And after having read several books, that it was just like, oh, this is okay. Like I wanted something that was going to grab me. I wanted something that was going to be amazing, and I wasn't expecting to feel the way that I did about this book. So the book is about a woman who you learn early on in her backstory that she was found by a group of people running from something, but she has no memory of what it is that she was running from, and she has no past. She doesn't remember anything about what happened to her before she was found. She doesn't remember who her original family is, none of that. As she grows up in foster care. She has this amazing foster mother who, you know, she becomes very close with, but she always feels like she is looking for something, and because of that, she ends up using her skills to find missing children, hence the Child Finder. That's what she kind of becomes known for. So she ends up in this town that has 2 different missing children, and she usually only works with one family at a time, but she ends up taking on both of these cases at once. The book takes you through her process of like finding the children, and then you also have a dual point of view from the Child Finder herself and one of the children that she's looking for. Oh my shit. I didn't know what I was getting into whenever I started this book. Like, again, I had heard people speak about it and heard about how amazing they thought that it was, but I did not know just how like deeply it was going to affect me. And just to give you some context, I told you already that I was listening to the audio. However, I was listening to it on my commute to and from work because I was driving about an hour one way to work and then driving an hour back, and so like I had a lot of time. I listened to my audiobooks on 2 times speed, so I was able to get through about 4 hours a day. And turns out that was actually a very bad book to be listening to like on my way to work, because I got to a certain point and I was probably like 10 minutes outside of, you know, getting to work. And when I tell you I was like driving and crying, like it fucked me up so hard. The way that the author wrote about the situations and what happened with these children, and like I felt that in the way that she wrote about a mother's grief. I'm not a mom. I'm a cat mom, so I don't know what that feels like, but the way that she wrote it, like I felt it, and it was hard. It was hard to read. It was just so good. Just so good. I cannot recommend that book highly enough. It was so good. So good. Okay, so the next book that I ended up reading was Inspection by Josh Malerman, and this had come out I think in April, and it was like on my most anticipated for 2019. list because I loved Bird Box and I've liked several other things that I read by him. And this was just okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. If you have read other Josh Malerman and you weren't impressed, I would say don't bother because it's just not going to be worth it for you. But basically, it's about this school for boys. It's like the Alphabet Boys or something like that, I think. And it's 26 of them. And basically what it is it's like, okay, we can take these brilliant minds, and what happens is with these brilliant kids and brilliant people, they get distracted and they don't realize their full potential because they're distracted by the opposite sex. So you have the Alphabet Boys, who, you know, are like growing up in this house thinking that women don't exist. They don't know what women are. They don't even know the word. They don't know the word woman or she or girl or none of that until some events are put into motion. And, you know, turns out there's also a house like across the woods of girls like doing the same thing. So they don't know each other exist. So of course, now we know that at some point they're gonna meet, right? So again, it was just okay. I wasn't enthralled by it. I guess it was like entertaining enough, but I just was very underwhelmed. The cover was gorgeous, but I was very underwhelmed. And the next book that I read was Recursion by Blake Crouch because I was so excited about Blake Crouch coming out with a new book because the Pines trilogy and Dark Matter were excellent, and I think I have like three or four other books of his on my shelves, but this was the new one and it came in through Book of the Month, so I was like, hell yeah, we're gonna read this now. And I gave this one 4 stars. I did very much enjoy it. Basically, the plot of this one is, and I've been like giving like super condensed versions of plots, and like I'm here for it. I'm like doing a good job this time. And usually I suck at plots. So basically, the long and short of this plot is you have a woman. She is, her mom is like struggling with Alzheimer's and like dementia or memory loss. She makes it her life's mission to find a way to like try and reverse that process, and starts working with a company and comes up with like this chair, and it has some unintended effects. It ends up doing something that nobody dreamed that it could do. People start showing up. It's basically where you have like 2 different sets of memories in your head, but you don't really know which one is the real one. And people just start popping up with this, and like people are killing themselves because they don't know which, you know, they feel like this second set of memories that all of a sudden is in their brain, like they lived it. It feels so real, but obviously it can't be because of the reality that they're in now. And so there's a cop in New York that makes it his mission to kind of figure out like maybe what is going on with this. And so things kind of go from there. So once again, as like with Dark Matter, there's a lot of like sciencey shit, but it's done in a way where like you can understand it and it makes sense and it's interesting. And then just the way that it talks about the like memory loss and like dealing with somebody who has memory loss and that kind of thing. It's very, I don't know, it's just very well done. I liked it. And the next book that I read is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, and I really liked this one a lot. So this is about a group of friends that are in this like swanky ass performing arts school, and they're very close, but they're nearing the end of their school careers, and each of them are like kind of going through different things, and they each have very different dynamics with each other. And then one of the friends is found murdered. One of the friends goes away for it, even though we're not 100% sure if he's the one who actually committed the crime. So the story itself is kind of told through flashbacks and then through present day when he is just now being released from prison. And it was just, the way that it was written was really well done. And it's like very Shakespearean. You know, again, it takes place in the theater. I've not read The Secret History by Donna Tartt, but I've been told that if you enjoyed The Secret History, that this is a book that you would also enjoy. But I thought that it was really entertaining. I couldn't put it down. The characters' dynamic between each other was really interesting. The characters themselves were very well written. You know, there was a lot of development that happened in like a short period of time. And so like overall, I just thought that it was really well done and I really liked it. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about for now was The Shining Girls by Lauren. I can't remember her last name right now. But I gave this one 2 stars. I didn't love it as much as I thought that I would. It was strange and just like, I was very underwhelmed. So the plot of this one is you have this guy who's like a serial killer, but there's this is going to be like the dumbest, the way that I'm going to explain this, you guys are going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? There's a guy and he's a serial killer. And he has like this time travel house. He kills different women because they shine or whatever. And then he goes back in time and like meets them at some other point and like gives them something or leaves them something. And then like one of the girls that he went to go kill, turns out she didn't actually die. And like, it's very strange. But like you have this time travel house and it was like so underutilized. It was like, and they never really explained it. Or if they did, maybe I just missed it because I was like not into it. It wasn't very well done. The writing style was fine. It was just like characters and plot and stuff. I just wasn't super into it. It wasn't, yeah, just wasn't super into it. So I do have another book of hers on my shelf. So I do plan on reading that and hopefully I'll like that more. But probably going to be unhauling that one. So that's the thing. So that was everything that I read in June. That was 8 books in June. So I was really proud of that because I didn't read very much in March or April. I will come back a little bit later. We're about halfway through June as I'm filming this, and I've read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have read 5 books so far in June. So July, read 5 books so far in July, and we're about halfway through. Started another one today. I started another Stephen King today, so that's a thing. And yeah, so that's all I got for right now, and I'll check in with you guys in a little bit. Okay, so we have returned and we're going to continue. I've got a couple more books that I need to talk about, and again, I just want to reiterate that most of these books it's been a minute since I've read them, so I'm gonna be like a little vague, and I'm not gonna be able to talk about like super details, but you'll get the gist of how I felt about it. So most of these books I do have physical copies of, but again, if I didn't have the mental fortitude just to set up my ring light, I didn't have the mental fortitude to pull them off the shelves, so that's a thing. Okay, so the first book that I'm going to talk about is My Sister, the Serial Killer. I actually got that one from my library, but I gave that one a 4 out of 5. It was a really, really short audiobook. It was only like 4 hours or something. So seeing as I listened on 2 times speed, I managed to finish it in 2 hours, which was nice. So really quick, really fun read, but it's basically about a girl, takes place in Nigeria, I believe. So, but basically it's about a girl who, she has a sister, and her sister is the beautiful one, and she is the one that, you know, is always told, well, why can't you be more like your sister, and blah, blah, blah. Well, turns out, as you can tell from the title, her sister is a serial killer, and it just is really about her, like, dealing with that and how she continues to, like, bail her sister out of stuff. So it was fun. I enjoyed it a lot more than I initially anticipated I would, because I had seen some mixed reviews, but I thought that it was a lot of fun. So, I mean, I would recommend reading it. And the next book that I picked up was The Girl with All the Gifts. And I am giving this one 3 stars, but it's like a low 3. It's like a really low 3. I just didn't love it. I had seen a lot of really good things about it, but it's kind of a zombie book, and I didn't know that going into it, honestly. There were moments where I was interested in what was happening and that I was interested in the characters, but most of the time I have to say that I wasn't. It would pick up for a minute and I would be like, oh, okay, we're getting somewhere, and then again it just wouldn't. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't dislike this, but it was just like so unmemorable to me that I couldn't really give you that much of a plot synopsis. I can tell you that it read a lot like I could see it being made into a movie, and maybe if it were made into a movie, I would have been more interested. But even then, like, I feel like zombies, because it wasn't quite zombies, it was like similar to zombies. It's like it's not a plague. I don't know. I'm not doing a very good job of describing this. Imagine that. So yeah, I didn't love it as much as I thought that I was going to. So, I don't know. So, next book is Jane Steele. So first of all, if you know anything about me, you know that I'm not a huge fan of classics. However, Jane Eyre is probably my favorite classic of all time. I have this really nice edition of it, and I have read it multiple times. I just love it. I love the film adaptations. I just really enjoy it. So I was like, oh shit, it's like Jane Eyre, but also she kills people. this is awesome. And it wasn't as awesome as I thought it was gonna be. Like, it was okay. I gave it like 3.5 stars, I think, something like that. 3.5 stars. I just didn't like, it didn't grab me the way that I thought that it was going to. I think because there was much less emphasis. I love the romance in Jane Eyre. I'm not like a huge romance person, but I love the romance in Jane Eyre. And I think that that's one of the elements, and that's one of the reasons that I love the book as a whole as much as I do. This just, like, it wasn't there. There just wasn't that much of like a romantic element. I mean, there was, and there were some things that were discussed in there in terms of like sexuality and that kind of thing. And I did enjoy that aspect of it, but just overall, I didn't love it. I found parts of it to be very predictable, which of course, seeing as it's a retelling of Jane Eyre, which it's like meta in that way, I guess. Am I using that term right? I don't know. But it's like, it's a retelling of Jane Eyre, but they use Jane Eyre in the book itself. Like, just totally forgetting the fact that it's Jane Eyre, but not. I don't know. Again, I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this. I suck at this real bad today. I'm gonna keep it on my shelf because, number one, it's pretty. Number two, it's a Jane Eyre retelling. So I'm gonna keep it on my shelf. But I didn't love it. So I've been in a thriller mood lately, in case you couldn't tell. So I was like, okay, well, let me read Cross Her Heart by Sarah Pinborough. For those of you that don't know, Sarah Pinborough wrote Beneath Her Eyes, Behind Her Eyes. Behind Her Eyes, I'm pretty sure is what it was. And that book was garbage. It was hot garbage. I read that and I raged at the end of it because it was not good. So I don't know what I was expecting with this book because it also was not good. It was extremely, extremely predictable. Like, there was absolutely nothing in that book that I couldn't tell you was gonna happen, at least, like, I would say probably by like a third of the way through it, I could have told you how it ended. And the ending was really abrupt. It was just like, oh my God, this is a thing, and now it's not. And then there was like this teen pregnancy element to it that I was just like, honestly, like, as soon as it went back and forth between the perspective of the mother and the daughter, and as soon as like she started talking about like her boyfriend and how oppressed she was, I was like, she's gonna get pregnant. Like, this is gonna happen. This is a mild spoiler. I'm so sorry I didn't warn you ahead of time, but I don't recommend that you read this book. It just wasn't good. I will never read another book by that author. But it was not good. So I went through my audiobook library and found The Dry by Jane Harper, which like takes place in Australia and stuff. And this one was just okay. Very, very character driven. Very, like, there's things that happen. It's a very small town. There was a disappearance of a young girl whenever the main character, I can't even remember his name. There was a disappearance of a young girl and who was his best friend whenever he was a teenager. And they never found her body. They never found out where she went. She just disappeared. Yeah, I don't recall if she killed herself or they thought that she committed suicide. But years and years later, like, there's this whole thing in the town that everybody hates this kid because he was really close to her, and they never really solved like what happened to her. And then years later, in the same really small town, his best friend, who was also best friends with a girl from years ago, his family was found killed in their home. And then they found the body of the guy later, and it looked like he had committed suicide. So it looked like a murder-suicide is what it looked like. And so he's back in town for the funeral and gets like roped in. I guess he does some kind of like financial police work or something. I don't know what that means, but he gets roped in by the local police department to like try and help figure out what happened to him. But everybody in the town still hates him. And like, so you go through and you're slowly told about the relationship between the girl who disappeared years ago and then the other two boys. And so like it's a slow burn. It's definitely a slow burn. And it's a slow burn. There were parts of it that I didn't really care very much about. And there were parts of it where I did start to get a little bit bored, but by the time we got to the end and the ending happened, and we really started to get more about the girl that disappeared, because this is a series. By the time we got to the end, I actually did want to continue on with the series, which kind of made me mad because halfway through I was like, okay, well, this is a one and done. Like, I'm not going to keep going. But they wrote me in. She wrote me in. So I don't know if I ever will continue on it, but it was interesting. So there's that. After I finished that, I was like, you know what? I need to get this show on the road as far as like reading these Stephen Kings. So I decided to go ahead and read Cujo. Cujo was the second Stephen King book that I ever read in my whole life. And I remember it being terrifying. And this time, aspects of it were terrifying, but I definitely didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to. Obviously, because it's part of my King Chronicles, it's going to get its own video, so I'm not really going to talk a whole lot about it. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was just okay. There were a lot of things about it that I didn't like, a few things that I did. So overall, not one of his strongest in my personal opinion, but that's just me. But that's all I have for right now. That was, again, 15 books. So if you stuck it out to the end, you are the real MVP. If you've read any of these books, tell me about how you felt about them down below. Remember, keep it spoiler free just in case other people haven't read them, and read your comment. As always, if you like what you see and you want to see more, you can click thumbs up or hit subscribe if you haven't already. You can also contact me on Twitter, Goodreads, and Instagram. All of those links can be found on the down bar below. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye.